Okay, I'm going to show a progression of what I call a landmine rainbow. Landmine's a really nifty little contraption. I just got one from Rogue. I got the Post landmine when they were doing their Black Friday sale. So it's really cool because like you can stick it into a stack of bumper plates down the center, throw it in the prowler when you take out one of the posts. So it's really, really convenient. I've got a bellow bar hooked up to it right now. So essentially what we're going to do here, we're rotating the landmine, but we're resisting that rotational force with our bodies. So just like with any other logical way of doing things here in the gym, you want to have a progression in place, or a progression scheme. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to show how we start with a small range of motion and work towards a larger range of motion, and then incorporate a more dynamic movement with pivoting the lower body. So first off, we're just going to start with short, tiny rainbows, I guess we'll call them. So what I'm doing, I'm holding the end of the barbell in both hands. I like to keep an athletic position, so I've got feet just about hip width apart, a little bit wider than that, but not really a squat stance. I mean, I can squat in it, but a nice stable base, I guess you could say. Knees are soft, quads are engaged, glutes are tight. So from the side, you can't, or well, from the side you would see, but I'm not standing directly upright here. I'm a little bit angled, which when you do things with the landmine in the upright posture, like if we were doing push presses or whatever, you would also be in a similar position. So what we're going to do is we're going to press and hold the barbell overhead, and we're just going to start off with getting things tensed up and keeping it that way. Small rainbows, just about going about eye level at the lowest. So top arm stays straight, bottom arm is going to bend a little bit. Okay, get the breathing in place. So that would be the first way of doing it. We'll consider that step one. Step two would be taking it to about shoulder level. So bringing it around, keeping hips squared, not rotating down below. So we'll consider that to be step two, just going shoulder level. Step three, I'm going to take it further. Almost to hip level. Okay, and then the fourth step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to incorporate a pivot with the opposite side foot. So I love pivot or movements that incorporate pivoting. Rotational movements, and actually during that period in the fitness profession, we did a lot of rotating, which things have kind of come back to center where we realized that we don't need to do a lot of exercises that incorporate lumbar rotation. We don't need that. What we need to do is resist rotation. So anti-rotation movements have become trendy, but it's a good thing. But with doing pivot movements, so going back to the JC Santana stuff, he did a lot of movements, and I still use them to this day, 15 or 10 years later, where we do band presses, rotational pulls and things like that, where we utilize the hips and drive the hip into internal rotation to where it kind of finishes out the movement. I love that kind of stuff. I feel like it gets people working their hip musculature better. And it's more dynamic. It's a progression from just basic static presses and pulls. So with that being said, the cue, let me just show real fast. what I see people do when they go to pivot, since it's not a common thing unless you're a tennis player or you do things where you have to turn and go, people are unfamiliar with pivoting. What I usually see them do is they will kind of take their foot and do like that. They'll come up on their tiptoes and kind of throw it that way. And then they end up externally rotating to where they're really not having to pivot. You see kind of a little partial pivot. So what I like to think about doing, let me set this down, is the cue that I like is squish the bug. So even though I don't try to kill bugs up in my gym, which fortunately we don't have a lot in here, but yesterday one of my clients was working out and I spied a huge fire ant crawling across the floor in here while she was doing chest presses. So when she was finished, I got a Kleenex and picked the guy up and took him outside. So I feel like it's bad juju to kill bugs, even though they're bugs, in one's place. Although I did kill a cockroach not too long ago. But anyway, squish the bug is the cue that I like. So people can understand that. So essentially what we're doing is you're pivoting and keeping the ball of the foot against the floor, like pushed into the floor, active. When people pivot and they come up on their tiptoes, it's kind of like a little pansy pivot, you know, whatever. But you want to be strong. You want to push and utilize this strong musculature of the hip, okay? So I've actually, and I'm kind of in the process of working on this, but I love furniture sliders. There's a lot you can do with them. So just this little random side note from that. If pivoting is hard for a client, what I've discovered works for me in teaching them how to do it better is to put a slider underneath their foot. And when we pivot, this other foot needs to stay straight ahead. Most people want to stand kind of here. What I like to get them neutral. And then what's happening is when we pivot there, we're also driving this the stance leg into internal rotation as well. So putting the slider underneath the foot of the pivoting side allows it to move more freely, and they have to push against it in order to keep it from slipping out into their foot. So that's a little freebie right there for you trainers if you want to try that. I'll be featuring that in one of the projects that I'm currently working on, which is to help trainers understand some different ways of cueing clients or doing things to get them to grasp exercises better. So be looking for that. But anyhow, the last progression, so we've got short ones, we did shoulder level, we went towards the hip, so that was 3 that we've shown so far. The last one we're going to do is going to be with a pivot. So it's going to be a more dynamic range of motion, bringing it down, pivoting the opposite foot, and then going to the other side. So if you notice, in comparison to the other versions, I'm looking the direction that I've rotated my body. So I'm not looking straight ahead. The other versions I tried to stay straight ahead with my gaze. This one I'm turning. So everything's moving together essentially on that one. All right, I think I've talked enough. So 4 progressions with the Landmine: short rainbows, shoulder level rainbows, hip level without a pivot, and then more dynamic pivot rainbows with a pivot. So give that progression a try with your clients, and feel free to give me feedback or ideas on maybe the things that you're doing, and have a great day.